You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks again for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. We're a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Hello, I'm Steven Willis from the Locked On Sports channel, along with Michael Katz from the Northeast Mississippi Tupelo Daily Journal. I got it right that time. And he comes in every week to talk Ole Miss sports because, honestly, the Northeast Mississippi Tupelo Daily Journal, they're probably in the best position to cover Ole Miss sports right now with everybody getting away with stuff, and they still do a great job with that. How you doing, Mike?
I'm good. It was weird. I wouldn't say I had nothing to do last week, but it was weird being able to just watch college football Saturday and not have to worry about writing a game story. It was quite nice.
Well, the thing that we found out from last weekend is that Texas got to find out that they were not ready for this, and that when Georgia is ready to play and they think that you can beat them, as Ole Miss found out a year ago, you're not going to walk out of that situation.
Yeah, that was eye-opening. You know, one of the things I thought I knew was that I thought Texas was by far the most complete team in the country, and then I watched that game, and I was proven very wrong.
It was 2 years ago. I go down here and cover the Under Armour All-American game every year. So I'm down there with beat writers from all over the country covering recruiting in for that game. And they were talking about Georgia. And it's like, yeah, no matter what you think now, the best defensive team that Kirby is going to have is that 2024 team, because it will be all top 100 players playing defense. And it's like, oh, okay, that's right. You know, you roll your eyes and you move on. And then whenever they flip a switch, man, they just become scary so freaking quick.
Yeah, they're when they want to be, they are pretty damn hard to beat.
Yeah. The good news for Ole Miss, and everybody's wondering, is like, well, Georgia's still on Ole Miss's schedule. Well, the good news for Ole Miss is Tennessee is the week directly after that game. So the odds are, if you look over the last 2 seasons, you're still going to get a good Georgia. I'm not saying you're not going to get a good Georgia, but you're probably not going to get that Georgia.
Yeah. No, for sure.
So this Oklahoma game provides a unique opportunity, I think, for the Ole Miss football program on multiple facets. First of all, the defense, Ole Miss being good, this is a chance to go against an offense that they should be able to handle on the line of scrimmage. And our old friend Joe John Finley is now calling plays for the offense for Oklahoma. Offensively, this is a chance for them to get right against a defense that is pretty good. This defense is good enough to make Lane worry. And when Lane is worried about the athleticism on the other side of the field, the game plan is going to be completely different. See Penn State a year ago, see Texas A&M a year ago, those things. And finally, this is kind of the dreaded must-win football game. But let's start about that opportunity. This is a big test for the Ole Miss defense and offense to kind of become the team that everybody expected them to be 2 months ago.
Absolutely. I mean, listen, they've had time to stew on a crushing loss, 2 crushing losses in 3 weeks. That LSU one, I think, hurt them pretty good. I think they need a little bit of time to kind of, lick their wounds and get in the right headspace. And this is, I think, a team. I know the numbers don't look good for Oklahoma, particularly offensively. That defense is still very, very good. And they got some really good players. But Oklahoma is always going to have talent. And that's always going to put them in a pretty good position. So I think when you haven't played a game in 2 weeks, you wonder, it can go one of 2 ways. Do you finally see the team that is well rested and in the right headspace, or do you see the team that is still mourning whatever happened a couple weeks ago? At least I think that this team has probably moved on from those past situations. I think this coaching staff understands how to deal with that, but I think that Oklahoma's not gonna. That's not gonna be easy. I know they don't score a lot of points, but talent is talent, and that defense is going to make things tough. I think it's a chance to, after having some time to sort of let the 5-2 record marinate for a little bit. What are you made of? What are you going to do against a team that is talented, is a name brand? And quite frankly, this is a game you can't afford to drop. I mean, this is It's all right there. If they win this game, you find a way forward, and if you don't, it's really hard to see a way forward. So I think there are a lot of compelling things on the table for Ole Miss here for sure.
Earlier this week, I recorded on ABC 24, and they asked the question, it's like, does Ole Miss need style points in this game? And I was like, no, Ole Miss does not need style points the rest of the year, because this is the way this is going to work. Everybody else is going to beat themselves up. If Ole Miss beats Oklahoma, they're probably going to move up a place or two in the polls. If they beat Arkansas, they're probably going to move up a place or two in the polls. That means they're going to play Georgia about ranked 13th in the country. And if you beat Georgia, you're going to be 9th. You're going to be 8th, and you're going to be right where you need to be no matter what happens. So I do not think you need style points. Now, Ole Miss's fan base might need style points. They might need a little feel good, a little pick me up, but that's more of a selfish thing than, hey, you need style points for the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, I think they want to see fireworks offensively. The SEC offense and SEC play has been a little bit hit or miss, and the scoring has not been where I think most of us thought it would be. I think it was unrealistic to expect them to do what they did in the non-conference schedule, averaging 50 whatever points a game. That was pretty unlikely come SEC time. But I think given what they have and what they have coming back and the talent, I think most people were probably expecting a little bit more offensively. But at the same time, what did we see last week? We saw that the SEC college football is going to eat itself alive. And Lane even said that, I think it was on Monday, that last year you could look and you could see a few teams. You're like, those are kind of like perfect teams that you knew were going to be in the hunt late. Like there aren't really like perfect teams right now. Every team seems to have a flaw. And I know Oregon and Penn State are undefeated, but Oregon almost lost to Idaho in its season opener and almost lost to Boise State. Like there isn't a perfect team right now. And so I think for Ole Miss, of course you want to get the offense going because that's going to be big, especially when Georgia gets here and stuff like that. But you just got to win 5 games. I mean, there's no way around it. If you win 5 games, you will be where you want to be. It doesn't matter if you won by 30 or if you won by 10.
Thanks again for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. All right, when we come back, we were going to drill down on that offense and specifically Tre Harris with a theory that I have. Maybe a hypothesis might be a better way to put it. But we will talk about that in just a second. Stick around. Sports fans, if you haven't tried Prize Picks, now is the time. Prize Picks is the best way to get real money action on sports in over 30 states, including California, Florida, Georgia, and Texas. It is fast, easy, and fun. You'll have your picks locked in within 60 seconds. Right now, you can win up to 100 times your money by nailing just 4 correct picks. And don't worry, if one of your picks don't hit, thanks to Flex Play, you can still cash out and double your money. What makes Prize Picks better than is their injury insurance policy. If one of your players leaves in the first half and does not return, your lineup stays live. No more ruined picks because of an unexpected injury. Sign up today at prizepicks.com and use the promo code LOCKEDONCollege, all one word, to get $50 instantly when you play just $5. That's right. You don't even need to win to receive that $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. So what are you waiting for? Run your game on Prize Picks and turn your sports knowledge into real cash money. Have you ever heard of the South's favorite pickle? I'm talking about Stewart's Cajun Dill Pickles, that is. If you think you do not like pickles, it's probably because you have not tried these yet. These pickles are so fresh and crunchy with just the right amount of Cajun kick to keep you coming back for more. And they're not just delicious, they're also handmade by family-owned companies on the Gulf Coast of Mississippi. So every bite is packed with authentic Southern flavor. But Stewart's doesn't stop at just pickles. They have pickled green beans, okra, carrots, and asparagus too, perfect for spicing up your snack game. You can find these amazing products at Rouse's, Sullivan's, Corner Market in Hattiesburg, and some Winn-Dixie's along the Gulf Coast. Or if you prefer shopping online, head to thepickledstore.com. Make sure to give them a like and follow on Facebook and Instagram. And when you shop local and try these pickles, I guarantee you will not be disappointed. Stewart's Cajun Dill Pickles, the South's favorite pickle. All right, Michael, this is a theory that I have about this offense, that Defense has basically just decided that Ole Miss was not going to score 65-yard touchdown passes, and as soon as the ball was snapped, they were running backwards. That's what they're doing. They were like, hey, let's stop the explosive play, make them drive the ball, and wait for Ole Miss to self-destruct and beat themselves. Get impatient and do that. And they knew that with Tre Harris, who is the best wide receiver potentially in all of college football. Tre Harris is on the availability report. He's listed as questionable. Now, we'll find out in warmups if he's actually going to play. But this is my theory. If Tre Harris doesn't play in this game and Ole Miss has to develop a game plan to use the other weapons that they paid handsomely for in the offseason, would that not be a good thing for the team moving forward when Tre Harris comes back?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's the worst thing in the world to have to game plan other guys. And I think we've sort of been waiting for that. I think the problem, though, is like Harris has come back and then he's gotten hurt in the middle of games and they've already game planned for him to be there. And then, you know, he leaves in the third quarter and you can't just completely redo things on the fly. But now that they've had time, and again, depending on, I'm sure they have different game plans for different scenarios for this. They've had 2 weeks. I think I was thinking about it the other day, like they just haven't had a game where it all comes together for all the receivers. It's come together for Tre Harris almost every week, but like Caden Lee has had good games. Watkins has been, I know he was hurt and he just became a father. So congratulations to him. I'm sure it's going to be a wild couple of days for him. I know he was hurt and he's been a little bit inconsistent. Juice Wells has been inconsistent. Caden Prescorn has been MIA at times. And so I think when you can potentially, if you know for certain that Tre Harris is going to be limited or he's not going to be available at all, this is when you can draw things up to get Juice Wells those touchdowns. He's been close a couple of times on, I know the South Carolina one that came out a little bit early. The ball did. He's had some drops the last few games, but there's no reason that a guy like that can't be a 100-yard guy consistently. And the same with Caden Lee. He did it last week or a couple weeks ago at LSU. I think there's so much more like in this passing game than what we've seen that, you never want to be without your best playmaker, but maybe it does open things up.
No, isn't it weird? And, I love second guessing. That's kind of like half of my MO. But they're using Juice Wells right now the way that they use DK Metcalf. It's a whole lot of 30 yards down the field jump balls to be physical, win, and make contested catches. But Juice Wells made his bones at South Carolina as being a run after the catch guy, get the ball in his hand. Wouldn't it make sense that if in this bye week they would figure out a way to do just that?
No, it's really interesting because I wrote about that a few weeks ago on how he did not go deep very often at South Carolina. It was a lot of short to intermediate stuff and let him get the yards after catch. But like you said, most of his action at Ole Miss has been those long passes that you have a far greater chance of those falling incomplete than you do of him catching a 5-yard route and letting him do something with it. And that's, all offseason we heard about how big and strong and physical he is. And I don't think we've really gotten to see like those attributes at their best yet. So again, like I'm not going to second guess how coaches draw things up, but it is interesting how the things that made Juice Wells so successful at South Carolina, we haven't seen him in those positions yet. And I think, like you said, the bye week might've been a good time to, maybe go back to the things that he's really good at.
Yeah, all these analysts and everything, South Scout, we're not saying anything that they don't know inside that building. And also Jackson Dart in passes under 10 yards, downfield, 10 air yards, inside the change. He's thrown 14 incomplete passes in 7 games.
It's the thing, like give your guys the ball and let them do what they do. You have Tre Harris does it. They love throwing those short hitches to Tre Harris and letting him work. You've got Prescorn. You got Wells, like let them do similar things and get those, let the offense it doesn't need to always be the 20-yard throws, just get first downs.
All right. Thanks again for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first and listen every day. When we come back, we are going to talk about the defensive side of the ball. And I do have a theory on that one as well. We'll talk to Michael about that in just a second. So stick around. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season off with a big return on FanDuel. It's America's #1 sports book. Ole Miss is currently favored by 20.5 points against the Oklahoma Sooners, despite the under-over being at just 48.5 right now. That's like a 34-14 or a 35-14 Ole Miss type of game, and honestly, that probably makes a little bit of sense. So when you get a hunch in the middle of this game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more in the same place where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 back in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Now, the strength of this team turned out to be the defense. All offseason, we talked about what this offense could be, and this defense just came and is stealing the show. They're currently second in the nation in scoring defense, second in tackles for loss, seventh in sacks at the moment. Their third down conversion rate is about at 1 in 4. If you look at numbers, they've given up 6 touchdowns the entire season. This defense has been the strength of the team. So my thought is, Michael, Ole Miss fans should probably be rooting for 3.5 to 4 minute touchdown drives as opposed to 55-second touchdown drives.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, let the defense cook. I mean, they're really. I was looking at some of the stats yesterday. They've given up 1 rushing touchdown this year,
and that was that Kentucky fumble play.
Yes, which was again like that was just an insane play, but like that's it. It's crazy how good they have been, and I know that some unfortunate things happened at the end of that LSU game, but the defense held up its end of the bargain for the most part in that game. They were put in some bad spots where the offense couldn't stay on the field, and Nussmeier made some great plays. And again, against Kentucky, the defense played really well, except for a couple plays at the end that it shouldn't have. The offense shouldn't have only had 17 points. It shouldn't have been that big of a deal. So. It's crazy to think about a Lane Kiffin team being defensive led, but I think that might be where this is. And, I think when you can rely on your defense, I think it does take pressure off the offense too. Grind out some clock and get those touchdown drives, and then let your defense wear down teams. And just, I think this is famous last words, right? Because we know that they love the deep shots down the field and those big plays, but like maybe this is when they start playing a little bit of bully ball.
Yeah, the murder ball that we thought we were going to see after that South Carolina game when they didn't even throw any passes in the fourth quarter. You thought that switch flipped. I did a show earlier this week, and it wasn't anything negative towards Lane Kiffin or anything like that, but I was like, this is the game where you get to see if he wants to be an offensive genius or if he wants to be a winning football coach, because they're kind of mutually exclusive with this team. And there's many times that the defense has been hung out to dry. If you just take care of that defense, this 10 points a game scoring average is probably closer to 7.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's a really interesting point, because that they would probably love nothing more than to put up the crazy stats and the Heisman numbers for Jackson and the Biletnikoff numbers for Tre Harris, but like that's just not what this team is. At least it hasn't been as of now. This is a defense that has been dominant, and I think it's an opportunity for Lane. Lane gets a lot of credit and a lot of flack from media around the country for a lot of different things. But I think this, like you said, is an opportunity for him to be a head coach and be a really good head coach and do the thing that is best for the team rather than, what might be best for, for social media and for, pundits and whatnot. That is a really good point. I think it's a really interesting scenario.
And also Ole Miss fans should probably take heart, because this is probably the first time that this has been even an option for teams. But that Ole Miss Georgia game, you have an opportunity to do to the other team what Georgia did to you. That's what I've taken out of this season. If this team puts it all together, it's going to look like what Georgia did to Ole Miss that night.
And you've got a couple weeks to figure out what you want to be now. You've got 2 games that look very winnable, and of course weird things happen in Fayetteville. We know that, but these look like 2 winnable games. You've got a chance to figure out your identity for the end of the season, because let's be honest, Assuming they don't slip up in the next 2 weeks, it all comes down to Georgia, and that's the game that you've had circled on your calendar since last November when it all went wrong and you went in the portal and you recruited a different way and you put this team together. I'm sure that they want to make it worth it.
Mm-hmm.
And no better way to do it than against them.
Yeah, you need to be 7-2 going into that Georgia game. If that happens, everything's on the table for the reason that you put this team together. Just Kentucky doesn't matter, LSU doesn't matter. If you win that game and just handle business against Florida and Mississippi State, you're right where you want to be.
For sure. Yeah, no, and I think that's the thing is that if this was last year, it'd really be hard to see a path forward with the 14 playoff.
Mm-hmm.
But now with 12, like I've seen projections where maybe a 3-loss team gets in. Obviously, it depends who you lose to and whatnot.
Yeah, that wouldn't be Ole Miss. So
No.
Right.
I don't remember
the schedule. Yeah.
I don't remember who it was specifically, but there are just your season's not done after 1 or 2 games anymore.
Mm.
And I think that this game and really the rest of the season is going to be a really interesting. I think we're going to learn a lot about this program and what they've built, and how do you come back from all this heartbreak? Do you find the way forward, or do you let it slip away? And it's going to be fascinating to watch.
Yeah, if they can get the win and get the little bit of feel good, and then you get ready and get some momentum in Fayetteville, which Ole Miss hasn't won in Fayetteville since 2008. If you get that going into that Georgia game, it's going to be massive, and it's going to be everything will start to feel right. There'll still be that trepidation, and everybody will look back at that Kentucky game and just go, "How did that happen?" But you still will be in a good spot come that Saturday, the Georgia game. Anyway, thanks again for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Michael Katz of the Northeast Mississippi Tupelo Daily Journal. What do you got going on this week, bud?
There's been a lot. The bye week was nice. It was nice to have a little bit of a break, but I chatted with an Oklahoma beat writer just to sort of get an idea of what's going on over there. Obviously, there's a lot going on there right now with some coordinator changes and personnel. Trying to figure out what's going on. So I think that's either up today or tomorrow, just a sort of Q&A. I just always think it's interesting when things aren't going right at a place to hear from somebody who's on the ground there. So something like that, that's coming out soon. And I got a big feature story I'm working on right now. It should be for Georgia week, hopefully. I don't want to give too much away, but it's about an Ole Miss defender. And who would have thought that I'd be writing about a defender again? Yeah. It's usually all the offensive guys, right? No, I've had good luck with the defensive guys lately.
And before we get out of here, Chris Beard and the Ole Miss basketball team, first ever preseason ranking in the coaches poll in Ole Miss basketball history. They're ranked in the AP poll as well. They play Illinois on Sunday, and that game's going to be on TV. We're going to be able to watch that game that does not count, and we're going to have a nice first impression of this basketball team.
I mean, it's crazy when you look around the country, like, no disrespect to Kentucky, but they play like Kentucky Wesleyan in their exhibition. I think they're playing Minnesota State and Mankato for another one. Like, exhibition games usually aren't like must-see situations. That's a team. I think they were in the Elite Eight last year. They made the last 4 tournaments. They finished like number 6 in the country last year. Illinois is really, really good. And I know that they had a lot of roster turnover, but Brad Underwood is about as good as it gets coaching wise. It is the rare, I think it's the rare exhibition where I think I might actually learn something, and I'm excited about that.
Yeah, and in the super secret scrimmage that nobody is talking about whatsoever, the little bit of information I got out of it is the Ole Miss actually played pretty well, and the new guys that they brought in looked pretty good. And that was against Houston, so that's nothing to sneeze at.
Hell of a program too.
Yeah, so Beard's not messing around. Anyway, Michael, thank you very much, and be safe heading over to Oxford this weekend, bud.
All right, sounds good. Talk to you later.